welcome to a Little Help podcast, where understanding life cycles can help us to make better choices. Let's get started. I'm April, and today we don't have Minnie. I know she's happy. That's okay. Yeah, she'll be excited. But today we have Mike Reed.
Hello.
Of Vegas Podcast Studios.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm honored to be your guest. Oh, she looks scared.
For some reason, he wanted us to do a one-on-one to ask me questions.
Mm-hmm.
Am I nervous? Yep.
Don't be nervous. No, don't be nervous. Well, let me first start by saying that April was at Vegas Podcast Studios has been open since October of 2024. And April was our first client with us.
Wow.
And the day you came in with your daughter Mignon, two very positive energies, two very beautiful women.
Burst through the door.
You did. And you just kind of were here. And I remember you thought, I had no idea what I'm going to be doing, but you felt that you were being pulled to do this podcast.
Right.
And I remember being here in the control section of the room.
Yeah.
And hearing your first podcast. And considering you had never done it before, I was so pulled in to what you were saying.
Aww.
I was moved. I was touched. I couldn't wait to get it edited for you and get it out in the world.
Yeah.
Because I said, people have got to hear your stories. And often after you do record with us, we spend at least another 35, 45 minutes just talking.
Talking after we finish the podcast, because they want me to continue and go on and ask questions. And
I thought, I know there's going to be people that want to hear more about you, but I'm getting to know you well enough that you're not going to do it on your own. We got to kind of pull it out of you.
You're right.
And I thought, I think I want to talk to April one-on-one and just talk about your story, your journey, what your plans are. And I think people would be curious to know, So thank you for being willing to do this. I appreciate it.
Okay. We'll see how this goes.
Let's start with the simplest part. What made you decide, after all that you've done in your life, and you've done a lot, that I think I want to do a podcast?
Like you said before, the pulling of my soul, I've always asked God, as a youngster, as a little girl, because you always hear about life purposes. And I'm like, well, I'm out here and I'm working and going through a whole lot. And, it's like, God, what is my purpose here? What am I here for? We all want to know, why are we here on this earth? What is the whole point?
What am I supposed to be doing?
What am I supposed to be doing? And I went through life and went through a lot of ups, a lot of downs, You don't think that the downs are great when you're going through them.
Right. There's a purpose for them, but you just don't know what they are at the time. You're like,
you don't know.
I'll learn something at some point.
But one thing I always said, once I did ask God, eventually it's going to come. What you ask for, eventually, the answer will come. You don't know how many years later on down the line they're going to come. But the answer did come about my voice, and I'm like, what do you mean, my voice? What do you want? I'm like, what is it? What are you trying to tell me, God? And he said that I could help a lot of young girls to not have to make the bad choices that I made in life. Mm-hmm. To help their journey go a little easier. Mm-hmm. So that's what I feel like I wanted. That's what I know he wants me to do.
Sure.
And I always said, I don't ever want to leave this earth not serving my purpose, not carrying out my purpose in life. I don't want to be up there, on Judgment Day and I ain't did nothing.
Yeah. Like going down the checklist. You didn't do this, you didn't do that. Well,
yeah.
I respect that you took that advice in a way and thought, all right, it's time to do something for the good. And I noticed you said help other girls, but I can tell you that some of the advice you've given is going to help guys as well.
Really?
Absolutely.
Because a lot of, of course, females, so a lot of the things I talk about is through my experience.
Right.
So if a guy can pick up some of the things that I say and it would help them, I mean, that's great.
And you definitely have. I've heard you say things in a couple of other episodes that I took away and went, oh, you know what? She's absolutely right. I never thought of it that way, or I never saw it that way. And you have this unique gift of being able to tell a story in a way that people genuinely hear you.
Wow.
And that's what got my attention initially. I'm like, I can picture what you're going through. I can picture what you're saying. And it's rare that people can do that without sounding either, what's the word I'm looking for, instructive or bossy, or, you're not saying this is the way it should be, but you're saying, like, you know what, this is the way it happened. I got this out of it. And if you get this instead, then you've learned something. And you've just got a great way of saying that. Have you always been able to do that when you're talking to people?
It's funny. I had a teacher, probably maybe in high school. So like an English teacher, and her name was Mrs. Banks. And she would give us a topic to write on. And it's funny because she said, April, I always save your papers for last. And I'm like, really? She said, because I really get a lot of feeling out of what you write. And I'm not thinking,
You're just doing what comes naturally.
I'm just right now,
Yeah.
It's like once I just sit down and leave other classmates alone and focus, I've always written from the heart, from truth, from, and that's just, I feel like when I tell my stories, I'm not trying to make them look good, or I'm not trying to speak in the big words. I try to simplify things because I know other people have been through what I've been through.
Right.
So let's keep it simple.
Yeah.
Because I looked at some podcasts and I'm like, they're kind of a little too technical. They too. I want to keep it real. I just want to keep it real. This is what happened. This is how it went. This is the truth.
Yeah. So, have you found yourself in life? Do you feel like you're more of a leader or a follower when it comes to people that you're just generally around? Do you find yourself in more of a leadership position, or more of a, hey, I'll kind of follow the lead and I'll interject what I think at the right time? Or which one do you feel you're more of?
That's yeah. In my younger days, I was more of a follower.
Okay.
More of a follower. At this point in my life, at this stage of my life, I'm more of a leader.
Okay. When did it change? When do you think you noticed that difference?
Oh, gosh, just going through life.
Was it a specific event in life, or an age, or? Probably
as I got older. And I always talk about my mom, and it's funny, because
I love those mom stories.
People say, well, how are you going to talk to people when you're crying? Because I never got over that, and I told her, I said, we never really talked about grief. Grief is just something that it takes years to get over.
Sure.
But they said the same thing. I had a brother, with mom. Would you had ever thought it would have been April to step up and take the lead of the family? Because
how many brothers and sisters?
It's 8 of us. But at that time, my sister was deceased, so it was 7.
Okay.
So, I didn't know,
Yeah.
But when stuff happens, I just move.
Right.
I just, I was at Ponderosa and my manager brought a lady over to me. She said, April, this lady is trying to talk to me and I don't know what she's trying to say. And I looked at the lady and I'm like, she's turning blue. I grabbed the lady, took her in the bathroom and started doing the Heimlich on her.
Oh, wow.
She had food. She was choking.
Choking, yeah.
She was choking to death. And I did the Heimlich and the food came up,
Wow.
So it's just when something happened, I take that lead. I take that role,
So you just
I don't
it just
think
feels
about
natural.
it.
Yeah,
I don't think about it. I just do.
Just do.
I just do what needs to be done.
Okay. And like I said, was there a specific event that caused your mind to start doing that? Because I know myself, at some point you get to, I call it the I just don't care level, where it's like things that used to bother me, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah, I'm there.
And I remember specifically for me, it was an age when I got to about 35, 40. I was like, you know what? Some of these things I'm worrying about are just not worth worrying about anymore. So for you, that change, did it come after a specific event in your life or more of an age in your life?
I would probably say events and age changed me.
Okay.
Anything
specific that stands out?
Probably the last relationship. It just got to the point of I'm done. I'm done with the, trying to be somebody that I'm not, trying to please somebody, the people pleasing, as I talk about all the time, it's like you get fed up.
Sure.
Enough is enough.
Tired.
You get tired.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was just about me, because when I moved from Indiana to Vegas, I was alone.
Okay.
And I think I spoke about it on other podcasts where I sat, and it was me and God, me and God every day. And that grew me. I've always been a spiritual person. I always believed in God. Of course, I tell you guys the story about that. But it just got deeper.
What got deeper? Like, what did you feel change?
What I felt change was really I always talk about looking in the mirror to realize who I am. To be okay with people not caring for the way that I did things or that I do things or how I handled this situation or that situation, I had to say, hey, April, you are that people pleaser. You do have a big heart, but I was giving my heart to the wrong people.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. You learn to put that energy where it really needs to go.
Yeah.
There's so many people out here in the world that need help.
Yeah.
As, you got people that don't care, about your love, your heart, what you put into them, or how you see them and like my girlfriend said, April, you was always that I'm going to fix this person. I'm going to help this person. that was who I was.
Yeah. What do you do with the people that don't want the help? You can help them because we've all come across that. Where you've got these poor people that I know what you're going through. I can help you or I can guide you, and they just don't listen.
They're not ready. You can take a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink.
So what
I can tell you all day long what needs to be done.
Yeah.
But you have to want to do it.
Yeah.
You have to want to make that change. Like I said, you can be tired, but you got to be sick and tired. Like my girlfriend said, April, you were tired while going through what I was going through my divorce. But when you get sick and tired, you ain't going to tell nobody. You're just going to do it. You're just going to go. You're going to make it happen. But people got to get sick and tired.
So if you see someone, let's just say a friend, and they're not ready yet, like you said, how do you stay in their life to say, I'm still there for you when you're ready? Or how do you let them know that they need to be ready? Like, what would you say to them?
Sometimes it's hard to tell a girlfriend where what you're doing is not right. That ain't God's way. It's hard to tell a friend that because they're going to do what they want to do.
And some friends, I think, respect that you want to help and that you have things to say to them. And then others are like, it's none of your business. Just leave me alone.
Absolutely.
So
then look, what does God do? God stand back until you're ready to come in. I'm not going to push myself on one of my friends to say, hey, you need to stop doing X, Y, Z. No. You're not doing right.
You do what you want to do. When you're ready, I'm here.
Because I was that person also.
That you rejected the help?
Yes, absolutely.
Who was it that was trying to help you, and what was your response when you were like, I'm about it?
My girlfriend that I think I did a show with her, maybe might be episode 4.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So she was the one trying to
she would say,
guide you, and you were like, I'm not having it.
Yeah, I did what I wanted to do. Couldn't nobody tell me nothing.
Yeah.
Girlfriends, my mama, I was hard-headed. Mm-hmm. I was hard-headed. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and couldn't nobody tell me nothing.
When did it change? When did you go, okay, I'm ready for help?
Kept getting your head bumped. Kept going through hard knocks. Kept going through, hurts. It's like, okay, something got to give. I had to get off the hamster wheel. I had to get off that wheel. I couldn't keep going through the same cycle. You're going through the same cycle,
And so many people don't realize they're even in a cycle, or that they're on a hamster wheel that's got them in this loop until, like you said, they hit their head and go, wait a minute, what's happening here? Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing that, again, going back to your whole podcast concept is phenomenal, is you've made, 5 episodes now? This is number 5 or number 6?
This is number 7.
Number 7. Mm-hmm. And all the episodes you've done, the continual theme that I've noticed is you say things in many ways that help people kind of bump their head in a way and go,
I kind of put it in different ways, different scenarios.
And you're so good at that because it makes things stand out that people may not even normally think of as being a problem. And just by the way you say it, or you describe one of your scenarios. And quite honestly, this is an advertisement for your podcast, as far as I'm concerned.
I know, you're just being nosy.
No, I'm telling you, people need to hear what you have to say because you say things in a way that it just stands out. It makes people think about things in their lives. I love, let me just backtrack a little bit about you and your daughter. Oh, my goodness. You and Mignon together in so many ways are like me and my mom.
Oh, right.
And we clash where we clash, but we highlight each other very well where we highlight each other very well. And I know originally she was not all that excited about being on the show. And the more she's done with you, the more you both have kind of, come together more, I guess you could say. What has she changed in your life that made this work? The two of you doing the show together. Like, what point did you cross where you felt comfortable talking together about things?
Well, she's always...
Because it wasn't at first.
Oh, God.
Not at first. She was not into it.
Of course, she tells you the story of, my mom, she said, well, Mom, you came to me, you wanted me to help you with this, and then you wanted me to help you with that, and then that fell through, and then you wanted me to help you. I'm not doing nothing else until you're ready, until you really know that this is what you're like, oh, my goodness. I thought it was funny because she had the nerve to tell me that she talks to one of her girlfriends when I get on her nerves.
Oh, okay.
How am I getting on your nerves? But I think once she saw that it was something that I really wanted to do to help other people, and I just stayed on her and kept on and kept on, and she'd be in her room and what, Mom? What do you? But it's not going to get started overnight, and because like I told you, I brought it to her like in August, and we didn't get started till what? December?
It was November,
December,
something like that.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen overnight, So I think she got on board when she saw I was, really about it, and she was
you were feeling it.
I was feeling it. You need to do this, and this to get this done.
Because that's what I noticed. Now she's like almost become a producer, where it's like, all right, Mom, we're going to do this, we're going to do it. And even the one day we did that quick little video, and she jumped right in there, follow, subscribe. Remember, I'm like everything you want to say, and. That's what I mean about you. You pull that kind of energy out of people, and it's amazing to watch. It's
because you definitely can't make her do nothing she don't want to do.
Clearly, but you did.
I got it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. I told her a long time ago. I said, Mignon, I think that people will enjoy your version of it at your age. Mm-hmm. And then my version of it at my age, they can kind of see both sides of it because you got some adults that deal with, got children her age.
Sure.
you know, like especially with the father thing, you know, when we did the podcast on the daughters growing up without the fathers, you know, how many moms, you know, felt my pain of what I went through from watching her. You know, so they got to feel my side, and hopefully the younger generation got to understand our side as we got to understand how they felt.
Also, another great episode. I love that episode because, again, both the daughters had very distinct thoughts of how you should be thinking and how the moms should have felt, and yet you're like, no, we're not mad. We're not, you know, it's right. And there were so many moms that take on the mother-father role, and it's hard enough just to be a mom, let alone to be a mom and a dad,
just to be a mom,
and not hold resentment. I've seen some people hold resentment towards the children, and hold resentment toward. You didn't. You've let it all go, and you've invited that part of your life and said, you know what, it happened. Let's pick up. Let's learn from it. Let's move on, and that's something I know other moms have had trouble doing. And that episode definitely is one that any mom who's feeling like I'm alone or I've had to deal with this and I don't know should watch or listen to that episode because it truly touched that point. Yeah. And it was beautiful the way you spoke of it. It was one of the hardest things probably in your life, I would assume. Yeah. That you could just say, all right, you know, and I respect people that can do that. There's not many people that can take, I don't want to say a tragedy because it's not a tragedy, but just take a rough spot in life, a really rough spot in life, and say, all right. Because again, I know when I've been in those, you think to yourself, what do you want from me? Why do you keep taking things away from me? Why do you keep giving me these stupid challenges that I don't want, that have nothing to do with what I'm focused on? And, you know, move on from it.
And it's funny that you say that because you have these conversations. Well, I had these conversations with God. It's like, God, why? Why am I going through this? You know, every situation, every time you hit that bump in the road, every time you know, it's like, what am I here for? Yeah. Why do I keep going through this?
Especially when you think you've been on the right path, and it feels like, okay, this is finally it, and then nope, rug gets swept out from underneath you again. You know, we touched on this off air one time, and I'm just curious because I'm curious how you answer this question. I myself do not consider myself religious. I don't. Do I believe there's other things controlling the universe? Sure. You know what? I don't necessarily know, but I don't necessarily specifically believe in a God myself. But I also respect the beliefs of others who do. I don't ridicule it. I don't doubt it. I don't think, you know, like, but what do you say to people like myself who say, all right, I don't have a higher power that I look up to. How do I find comfort? How do I find the peace if I'm not a religious person?
I should be asking you that question.
I wish I knew. I think, I mean, my grandfather, who I never unfortunately had the chance to meet, he passed away before I was born, had always said that, you know, to him, the forest was his spiritual place. He was not a huge believer as well. I mean, he did to a degree, but he said, I can go to the forest, be with my dog, out in nature, and that's where I find my peace. And there's definitely other people out there that don't have a religious belief, you know, but they're looking for something. So what would you say to those people?
You know, I think we did have a conversation like this before, and like I spoke to you before, I really don't like to talk religion, politics, because everybody have their own belief. Sure. You know, I believe in God, you know, Jesus, the Holy Spirit. I was raised to believe in that, and grateful that I do. God is love. Sure. God is love. I do believe in the energy. What you put out into the energy, what you put out into the universe, you know, will come back to you. Yeah. You put out negative, it's going to come back, you know.
And I wholeheartedly agree with that.
You put out love, you know, God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, the three equals one, love. And I feel like if a person is out there, you know, showing love, trying to be love, you know, being positive. Right. what more can you ask? Because I can't sit here and say, oh, I can't stand this religion, that religion, people that don't believe in God, or I can't speak on that journey. I know my journey, and I'm glad that I do have that belief, that faith, that God, someone to turn to, someone to talk to every morning.
Yeah.
How to guide somebody that way.
But I think you said it perfectly, because at the end of the day, it's love and respect.
It's love.
Whether it's for yourself, for other people, for the universe. And I remember, and I told you how much I love your podcasts. And being that I have less of a spiritual belief than yourself, I felt something. Every time you have a show, I feel something. And it's a love.
Feeling. It is a feeling. And I do feel the embrace of the Lord. When I ask, he comes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you've told me those. Yeah.
I told you some of the stories.
Yeah.
I had someone on my route, and I told her, I said, when you ask God, you're like, God, Lord, I need you. I need that embrace. I need that hug. I need,
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. I said, oh my God, it's undescribable. It's an undescribable feeling.
Yeah.
She said, I never got that before. And I was like, wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
I thought everybody got that embrace and that love and that.
I know what you mean by that, because I think what's funny also, and I say funny and it's probably not the right word, but I had said to Andy, one of our other coworkers here, I told her, I said, you know what? There's a reason April found us. There's a reason that we're working together. And I wasn't necessarily sure what it was right away, but I think I needed a positive, happy, energetic energy in my life at the time. And when you and Mignon walked through that door, I went, I feel it. We're meant to meet each other. Whether it's just for the podcast, no, I think it's more than that. I really think it's more than that. And I said, I've told Andy, I said, I think I'll be friends with April for years. Yeah. I believe that. I really do. And
get you to believe in God and Jesus.
And even if not that, even if not that,
He's real. Yeah.
Maybe your energy is at least for now that version of God that I'm meant to know. Who knows? I mean, I have a very specific. Won't get into it because this isn't about me, but I have a very specific reason for why I consider myself non-spiritual, and it's, again, it's not judgmental on anybody else. I love your faith. I love watching how happy it makes you. I love that.
Bring you to tears.
It's beautiful. No, seriously, it's beautiful to me.
It is. Yeah.
And I don't doubt it. Like, I'm not sitting there going, no, she's crazy. No, I've never, ever, ever thought that about anybody. I used to go to church with my grandma every Sunday. I'd sit there and I'd listen and I'd go, okay. And I remember one time I got emotional in church, and that was when I was at her funeral. And the choir sang her favorite song that she had somehow written down somewhere that she wanted sang. And I just lost it. And I remember the feeling of, I'm not sure where this is coming from.
Getting the feeling through gospel.
Yeah.
Through music.
It was. And it was
it's
amazing.
Really something how, oh my God, I take my hat off to all of the gospel singers, because their music speaks to you.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to my soul all the time. Mm-hmm. I put my headphones on.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, whatever I'm going through that morning or whatever, was happening in my life, it's like those songs.
Yeah. Do you have any specific groups or choirs that you follow?
I couldn't even begin to name them all.
No. First one
Kirk Franklin.
Okay. I've even heard of Kirk Franklin.
Jonathan McReynolds.
Okay.
It's so many. I have a whole list, that I listen to. It's the old, the new, but it just gospel speak to you.
Yeah.
It really, really do.
It's beautiful music. In fact, a lot of people don't know that Elvis Presley, who never won a Grammy, never won any single music award for anything other than his gospel music. Those are the songs he won the awards for. Mm-hmm. And I remember I had actually worked for an Elvis exhibit as a tour guide. And when I learned about his gospel, he was a very religious, very gospel-followed young man. And that was when I was first turned on to some gospel music. And I went, okay, I can feel it. Like you that's music you feel. And if you can't feel the music, then it's not affecting you. So I completely understand.
Yeah, I got off into a lot of the Kiara Sheard and Tasha Cobbs, you know, and the Clark sisters. It's like you can name so many gospel artists. Yeah. You know, the Winans. It's just too many to...
Sure. Outside of gospel, what other kind of music do you like?
Oh, R&B, old school.
Oh, cool. Okay.
You know, I listen to a lot of different music. I don't listen to the rap.
Yeah,
you know, I'm not into rap, and you know, my daughter, I listen to, you know, some hip hop, you know, that I grew up with. You know, some things I can listen to, some things I can't because of the language.
Sure.
The beat be thumping, but when you listen to the words, it's like, no.
Like some of my favorites, like '90s R&B. You know, Brian McKnight. You know, Usher. Some really just like you said, clean.
I even got a playlist of just the white boy music. It's like that we grew up with. You know, I got a lot of that on there. You know, so Mignon loves it. You know,
so name some of those. Some of your favorites of those.
God, the Average White Band, Chicago, Sting.
All right,
come on.
All right. See, this is what I like to hear. I like to hear what it is about, what pulls it out of you, like what you know. Let's talk food. What is your favorite food? What do you enjoy eating? I love some good soul food.
Good soul food.
Yeah. Best restaurant in Vegas you've been to?
Oh my goodness, I can't even answer that.
No.
You know, but it is funny because it was one place that me and Mignon went to. It was a soul food restaurant actually, and I can't even. She would have to tell me the name of that restaurant. And y'all be, what was the name of that restaurant we went to? And it was really, really good.
Yeah.
But it was a soul food restaurant. Okay. I can't even think of the name of it. Yeah.
Do you like to cook?
Oh, I love to cook.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing to cook?
Whatever.
Really? So you have to get me in trouble.
I love to cook. Yeah. When Mignon was just learning how to cook, she was off in college, and she would call me and ask me how to make certain dishes. You know, how do you make greens, and how do you make this kind of chicken, and how do you make you know? Yeah. So I can cook. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's say probably better than my sisters. I'm the best cook out of my sisters.
We got to get them on another episode and find out. We'll have a cookout.
I got a brother that can burn.
Yeah.
My little brother. You know, he's good at certain things. Okay. You know his lasagna, but he's learning how to do baking a little bit better now. Okay. You know, because they used to have me to do all the baking for the holidays.
I'm a baker. I prefer to bake than cook.
Yeah, I can do either one.
Okay.
Yeah, but they would have me to do all the baking and stuff. But
feel free to bring anything in sometime. But you want, something didn't turn out right for you, bring it in. We'll take care of it.
But it's funny because now my daughter Mignon cooks way better than me.
Does she?
Oh.
See, good. You taught her well then.
Oh my!
Pick it up, Mom. That was again going back to you can't explain these things. My grandma, the one that I spent the time with the most, she could cook and bake anything, and she was Polish, German, Italian.
It goes back into generations.
And I know that there were times that I was trying to bake something, and I'd go, oh, I can't figure this out, and I'd feel Grandma just come tap me on the shoulder,
goes back.
Do it like this, and it would just happened. Yep. And it turned out and it tasted just like hers. And I was so happy with that.
It goes back into generations because they all did that. They all made the pots of food, you know. And so maybe, it came back from Grandma.
So you probably got it from your mom, right?
Her, yeah. Mm-hmm. They would always make pots of foods and jar foods and store it. And Yeah, my mom was a good cook. My dad was a good cook.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's a gift when you've got that in your family, and you've got that.
No, it ain't, because all of them didn't pick that up. No.
Not all of them, but I know for me that there's something very comforting about tasting something that one of your ancestors had made, and it tastes the same, and it just takes you back to those moments of like you said, love and appreciation, and it's something as simple as a baked.
And you'd be so mad because my mom used to make these rolls, and they were so good. They were sweet, and you God, why didn't I get that recipe? Why didn't I learn how to make that?
Yeah. So. I had a couple of those too where I just I never got the recipe.
I never did get that,
Yeah.
She used to make the homemade ice cream, you got the, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, you're making me hungry now.
Yeah, she would make homemade ice cream. It would be so good.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So what is it you would say right now what's your next move in life? What do you want to accomplish next?
Right now, I'm just floating through the water.
Okay.
I'm floating through the water. I look at this, doing this as a hobby now. Mm-hmm. Because at first I would be a little, I don't want to do this. I'm afraid. But
you've changed. So I've said this to you before, and I've got almost 40 years of broadcasting experience. And I said when you first came in here, you were nervous, but you were only nervous for about 20 minutes, and then you started to become a host. And every episode since, you've become more and more and more of a professional. And
I try.
I'm telling you, when we hit 1 year, you're going to go back and look at your first couple episodes and think to yourself, "Oh, where was I?" Because you're a natural.
I fuss all the time about those first 2 episodes. I said, I came out here to Vegas, and I said, again, when I was in Indiana, I wore my own natural hair, and I said, okay, you know what? My hair is coming out; it's all dry, and I said, so I started wearing, the extensions, and I said, I got so many people say, okay, what was up with the bangs? What was up with that? I'm like, look,
I was experimenting.
Y'all got to deal with that for the first 2 episodes.
It's my show. I do what I want.
I paid for this, and I ain't about to take it out.
There you go. Exactly.
So yeah. So I had to go through. I went on and I cut all of the. They call it the relaxer. They got the beauticians call it the crack out the hair, the white crack. I'm like the
what?
So I had to let my hair kind of grow out a little bit. So now I'm trying to just go natural. So.
Well, I think the idea, just even the thought of I want to look good for the people, is something to be said. I mean, there's people that come in, and they don't really even think about what they look like. Like, I don't care. This is my show.
Yeah, but I just think right now I'm just...
So just kind of going with wherever...
I'm just going with the flow and, like I say, drifting through the waters right now, hoping that I can help.
You definitely are.
Other people, that's my purpose right now. That's my purpose, and that's why I'm doing this, just to try to help other people. And if I step on some toes, I'm not trying to, but it's my truth.
Well, and I think you need to step on a couple of toes to get things heard sometimes.
I never would have thought that doing a podcast and telling your truth would be difficult. Mm-hmm. Because there are some more truths that I haven't even talked about, that haven't even come out. Like you say, sometimes people got to pull things out of you, April.
Oh, yeah. But I think when they pull on you, you're willing to share.
It'll come out.
Yeah.
I'll tell it.
Because I've already seen that with some of your guests where they'll say something and Mignon would get that look on her face like, oh, here she goes. And out it would come. And it was truth, and it was honest, and it was helpful. So I think that's a great quality to have. Don't ever be afraid of that quality, because that's a great thing.
Yeah. But like I say, it's not an easy thing to do, talking about your past and things that you've been through, your hurts, your pains, not easy.
No.
But I'm here. It's what God asked me to do.
As long as you learn, I always said everything is an experience as long as you learn something, whether it's good or bad, if you learn something out of it. And clearly you take the most out of every experience you've had. Mm-hmm. And again, your show, Little Help Podcast,
I think that
is great.
All of the bad experiences brought me here. And like I said, you can help a lot of people with your story, with things you've been through.
If anyone is hearing this podcast first and saying, all right, what would you say to them is going to be what they're going to take away from your entire series? What do you want them to get out of a Little Help Podcast?
Love yourself. Love yourself. Find God if you don't know God. Mm-hmm. God is everywhere. But you got to look inside, the devil know your cycle. The devil gonna keep bringing the same type of person. He gonna keep you on that hamster wheel. He knows. He used to be an angel. Mm-hmm. He know the Bible backwards and forwards. You gotta stop straddling the fence.
Yeah.
You choose good. So many people got out of the Ten Commandments.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible. What's right, what's true.
And so many people I know, not misinterpret, but they kind of make their own interpretation
of the Bible. And that's
of how it fits them.
How it fits them.
And I find that kind of person is not as open-minded as they may think they are, even though they may claim to be religious and faithful and spiritual. And, if you're taking your own thought process and making it your own, that's not good either,
And that's why they have, churches. A lot of people have gotten out of going, to church, but that it is a place to learn. Mm-hmm. It is a place to learn the right way. Mm-hmm. But they have it, on TV now, and you can listen to it, and you can watch it on your phone, and, whatever way is best, for you to get it, know.
If you were to take your podcast and do it live from somewhere, where would it be?
Oh my God, I have no idea.
If you could pick up a bunch of friends or guests of your choice and say, let's do the show here today. Would it be in a park? Would it be in a church? Would it be at a restaurant? Where would you feel you're most comfortable talking about things like this with your friends?
I would want to, first of all, be with like-minded people.
Of course.
A like-minded group. Whether it was on a stage with an audience of other people that wanted the help.
I could see you doing that. I could absolutely see you on stage talking
ask questions. Yeah. Because I can't answer every question right here.
Yeah, of course.
I would love to have it where it was like open mic, ask questions.
Yeah.
With a group of like-minded people, not just me.
You should seriously think about doing that, because I think that would be amazing to listen to. That could be a 2-hour show easily.
It's funny because I'll be on the telephone with a niece or a sister, and we'll be talking about subjects. We look up, it's like, oh my God, we've been on the phone for 2 hours,
right?
And 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And we've been just talking about life.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's really just fun to talk to you. It really is, and I think it's equally fun to listen. And I'm so honored that you chose our studio to record.
Oh my goodness!
And we are loving having you here. And every time you come in, I'm excited to hear what you have to say and who your guests are going to be.
We come busting through the door.
Oh yeah,
we be like, hey.
She's like, all right, I'm here.
I'm here. Let's go. What we doing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. You brought your little mug that you got for Christmas last time that Mignon got for you. That was cute. You got your little note cards there.
Mug and your cards. Yeah.
It's just fun to see it grow, and we definitely want to help you grow it and help it get the word out. Mm-hmm. Do you have your social medias listed or anything that you want to share with anybody? Like where they can find you?
Oh, Little Help Podcast.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Little Help Podcast, yeah.
You're on YouTube now, correct?
YouTube,
okay.
Instagram. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
That Little Help Podcast.
That's, I got some people working on that.
That's good. I'm all about having people working for you.
She's doing a wonderful job.
Great.
She's doing a wonderful job with it. Shouts out to Kyla.
There you go.
One of Mignon's old friends that she ended up running into, meeting, so she's great.
Have you had any actual responses from people who've seen or heard any of the shows yet?
Some. Okay. Wait a minute. Let me go here. I got a sister, my little sister, right? So I talked to my older sister, and I like it. Everything is, Then I get my little sister, my little sister. Well,
They're always the most brutal.
My little sister. Well, you got time. I'm like, okay, yeah, So she naming all of these things. You need to do, first of all, the background is dark, so you need to wear brighter colors, and you need to start wearing a little more makeup, and you need to. I said, she said, I hope you're not mad, but I'm like, girl, no, I can take constructive criticism.
I appreciate it.
Just let me know, what
Put her on a plane, bring her out here, have her do the show with you.
Yeah, I'll probably get her on the Zoom.
It's a little different when you're sitting in the studio.
Yeah. They were actually out. They were out.
But they've enjoyed it. They've like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's good. And how about anybody offering topics? Has anyone suggested anything you'd like to hear?
I was talking to my niece, and we threw it out there, because she's like, she'll put a few things out there, to give you the, let's think about it this way and this way, like in the comments. Mm-hmm. And like I told her, I said, what I think? I'm going to throw it out there, if people want to hear a certain subject or want to ask questions, put it in the comments.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk about that on one of the podcasts,
That's a great idea. Because there's you could literally have 100 topics about life.
I've been through it all.
Right, exactly. And I think...
Ask me, I bet you I can answer.
I bet you can. I bet you can. From either, life tips to, life hacks and there's just so much out there. I remember...
Mignon was going through a situation, and she was just, why am I going through this? Why, and I shouldn't have to be going through. She was, I can't even remember what the situation was. Mm-hmm. But I said, Mignon, you're going to go through some things.
Yeah.
God going to take you through some stuff.
Yep.
Because you're going to be a therapist. I said, so when one of your patients come to you, and it may be on this subject, you're going to be so heartfelt. You're going to be a therapist from feeling. Some therapists is...
Yeah, time to go. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But you're going to really feel what they're going through.
Sure.
So a lot of your patients and stuff will be heartfelt because you've been through it. So you're going to go through some stuff as a therapist. You're going to... God is prepping you.
Right.
God is prepping you.
Because I've got to imagine, being a therapist, you can't not attach some of it to you personally. Mm-hmm. There's going to be topics that hit home, and to be able to kind of turn that off is
that's why I can teach you're going to go through some heartaches. You're going to go through some pains. You're going to go through, life, which I know I went through a lot of.
Yeah.
Can be able to sit here at this point in my life now. Mm-hmm. To help other people.
And I'm sure you feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you've got probably a wealth of knowledge that you didn't even realize you had that you can easily pull from when you hear someone talk about something and say, somehow I can relate to that. And somehow I can relate. And people in their teens and 20s who think they have that knowledge, myself included. And I'm sure you too. Back at that time, you're like, oh, I know.
We can always, get more knowledge.
Yeah. But then now, again, when you get older in life and you're like, I've got it finally at least semi-figured out, or at least I have an answer, or at least I can share some knowledge with somebody.
I never even looked at myself as having this knowledge or even feeling like it could help somebody. My life lessons and things that I've been through. I didn't realize that until, again, just talking to a lot of Mignon's friends, going through situations, nieces going through situations, whether it's a nephew or brother or sister or whoever, that they say, well, wow, you really taught me something, or I learned something, or, I'm just talking.
And it's true because, and I know that there's people that don't realize, like even when you're talking to a child, that one comment you make could affect them for the rest of their lives, be it good or bad. I can think back on my own childhood being 5, 6 years old, hearing something said that to this day sticks in my head as well. That's just the way it is.
Right.
And I love the fact that you are doing it in the positive way. And that you are sharing everything to help and warn.
To warn.
Yeah.
Don't. So wait a minute. I got it. I had Leslie on one of my podcasts, and she don't know it yet, but I'm gonna have her on another one. And I said, I think I'm ready to do a show on things that you shouldn't do as a girlfriend. You're not married.
hadn't even thought of stuff like that. That's brilliant. That's a great idea.
I think that's going to be after this one.
All right.
You know?
All right. So now we get a little sneak preview. What's
going on?
To
help the young ladies, hey, look, you know what?
I love it.
Because I just see a lot, going on in the world. I look at a lot of the younger girls that are watching these reality TV shows.
Do you think they're poison, those reality shows? Is there any good out of them?
I don't see it. Because that's not how you're supposed to act. Because
between those and all the social medias and, everyone's a superstar and everyone's an influencer.
From acting a fool.
Thank you. That's what I feel like most of it is. Like, there's nothing out there that I've seen that is not self-serving. And then you get the young girls growing up feeling like this is the way relationships are supposed to go. The arguing all the time, the fighting, the drama, it's like, come on, what are we teaching the kids? Yeah.
They don't see the loving relationships, They don't, what do they have to pull from?
Do you feel that there's anything in existence, whether it's social media or television, movies, that you feel are a positive influence? Like, that you would recommend to someone to watch or see?
You know what, they had the Cosby's on, okay, whatever Bill did. But the Cosby's was a good show. If he did it or not, I don't speak to...
And that's personal.
I ain't nobody judge.
Right. And again, take that away from the show. The show itself.
But the show itself was a good show.
Yeah.
I look at, Good Times. Good Times was a good show. Yeah. The Jeffersons was a good show.
I met Sherman Hemsley.
Yeah, did you?
I did meet Sherman Hemsley. Nick and I had that conversation one time. Coolest guy.
That was a good show. He loved Weezy,
Yeah.
Come on. You're not getting this anymore. All you're getting is this reality TV full of
negative.
And what about the girls that don't have, positive people in their lives? Mm-hmm. Everybody don't have the mom and dad. People,
True.
Adopted or going from this house to that house. As mama called them
the latchkey kids, yeah.
Kids. So they go home and they turn on this TV, and then when they get in relationships,
that's all they know.
That's all they know.
Yeah.
That's all they know. It's like, who's going to teach them?
You are. You are.
My goodness, who's going to teach them? You just feel sorry for them.
You do.
And then you got the parents, that's sitting and watching the shows with their kids. And let's say if it's your daughter, or, you're a father and you got a daughter, and as soon as the daughter put on something that look naked, you getting pissed off mad. Where you going with that on?
Yeah.
But you're sitting here watching this with her.
And more importantly, not explaining while you're watching that this isn't normal, this isn't right, It's just absorbed as...
So how you going to get mad at your child when you're sitting there watching?
Boy, that's true. That's true. And I think about it because I was a child of the 80s, so if there was something on TV that I wasn't supposed to see, but if there was something I wasn't supposed to see, I wasn't going to be able to see it because it was either on too late.
Our parents weren't going to let us.
Or, exactly. They'd be like, nope, you're not watching that.
You're not watching it.
Or, I remember there was one time that there was a movie on that was iffy. It was okay for a younger person. I think I might have been 12 or 11 or something like that. But I watched it with them, and they explained when certain things happened what was really going on. This is just a movie. That's not really what happens. That kind of thing.
But it's something how, back then, our parents, we had direction. We had, there's certain things you wasn't going to listen to on the radio, and there's certain music you wasn't going to listen. My mama didn't like us playing cards.
Really?
She said it was the devil's game. I'm like, Ma, it's just cards.
Oh, wow. And here you are in Vegas.
Right. But it was just certain things that you weren't allowed to do.
Or, again, we grew up in that era of, when the street light comes on, you go home.
You better be in that house.
If that light's on, you better be heading home.
They better not have to open that door and call you to come in that house.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I wish I could go back to some of those times. Because I feel like, of course, every generation thinks that. I feel like we'd be in a better place today if it was still like that. Mm. There was two things that I've always thought about that growing up, and I know you had the same thing. Mm. One, you respect your elders.
Absolutely.
Always.
Absolutely.
Now people look at elders as annoying. And I'm like, when did that disrespect get lost?
But then you look at this new generation now.
That's true.
They don't want a word. They talk back to the parents. They talk back to the teachers. And then you go all the way back to when we were raised. You're going to get slapped in the mouth.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to get your butt whooped.
And you said it, too, with teachers. Like, I remember being in class, and I was acting up. I was doing something I should have been doing. So I got, sent to the principal. I had a note I had to bring home. Right. And you know what? My parents didn't get mad at the teacher like they do now. She got mad at me and said, well, what did you do?
Right.
I said, well, I was doing this. Well, then you got in trouble and you should have. Go to detention.
Get mad at the teachers.
Yeah. Yes.
Like they kid is right.
Yeah.
You know your kid about need his head knocked off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If they did it, they did it. And the teacher's doing nothing at their job. And I hate to see that that's the way it is.
And back then we got paddlings at the school.
Oh, right.
And
no one fought it. No one had a problem with it.
And hope you don't get your butt beat when you get home from getting that paddling.
Exactly. Yeah. No, well, memories. I was such a bad kid. I wasn't a bad kid. I was a, what did my team, I got to think of this. This is personality driven or something like that. One of my teachers described me as. I loved being the center of attention, which explained why I ended up on the radio. But I was never trying to get in trouble. I liked the laugh. I liked the attention. I liked the,
You was a jokester.
Yeah. Like, I remember I did something in class one time, and I even got the teacher laughing. And I was like, jackpot. I win. But, April, I am still friends with that teacher today, and that was in elementary school. And I'm still friends with him on Facebook today, and he remembers that moment. He goes, I knew then you were going to be something.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking of being something, we're almost at the end of time here. And April, thank you so much for doing this interview with me, because I just, again, want people to realize that you've put together a podcast that is going to touch people. It's going to help people. And I wish you nothing but success with this. And I want to see it go for years and years.
I enjoy every time I walk through that door. I enjoy it. It's you can feel the love in here. You can it's great. It's great.
It is fun. So what's coming up on your next episode, or we're not sure yet?
I think I'm going to do that one that I was telling you about with Leslie. I think that's going to be a good one. I'm going to get her to write her list. And I'm going to have my list.
I like it.
I know she'll agree to.
Well, that's the most important part. So you're going to start getting followers. They're like, I want to be on your show. I want to be on your show.
No problem. Come on.
Right? Absolutely. How can people reach you if they want to reach you right now? Through
A Little Help Podcast.
Okay. Perfect.
Go to A Little Help Podcast, yes, on YouTube and Instagram right now.
Perfect. Yeah. I'll let you do your sign-off. It's your show.
All right. Continue to love, have faith, and believe in your dreams. God can do all things. God can do all things. Just ask Him for a little help. Peace.